The willpower instinct. How self-control works, why it matters, and what you can do to get more of it. Introduction. In this session, we will explore The Willpower Instinct by Stanford Professor Kelly McGonigal. This book also carries a subtitle, How Self-Control Works, Why It Matters, and What You Can Do to Get More of It. It is based on one of Stanford University's most popular psychology courses. Before diving into the content, let's first take a look at the remarkable social phenomenon surrounding this book. Since its release in 2012, The Willpower Instinct has become a global bestseller. Numerous online platforms host dedicated discussions about the book, and many grassroots groups focused on improving self-control have been formed based on its principles. As its subtitle suggests, the course at Stanford University that inspired the book is widely regarded as one of the most popular classes at the university. This phenomenon highlights two things. First, the book's widespread appeal, and second, the sheer extent of people's desire to improve their self-control. Indeed, the more people long for greater self-discipline, the more it suggests they feel they are losing control. In today's world, filled with countless temptations, how can one strengthen their willpower? This book provides answers. It offers scientifically backed methods to enhance willpower, such as 5-minute meditation, delaying gratification for 10 minutes, or increasing sleep by an hour. These techniques are simple, practical, and yield immediate results. However, if the book were just a collection of such tips, it would not be particularly groundbreaking. So, does it offer anything more critical? The answer is yes. Beyond presenting practical strategies, the author dedicates much of the book to analyzing why we struggle with self-control. Is it a matter of attitude? Does willpower have limits? Why do good deeds sometimes lead to losing control? Can willpower be contagious? Drawing from fields such as biology, psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics, the author offers compelling insights into these questions. The findings are often surprising. For instance, willpower is actually a physiological activity in the brain's prefrontal cortex. Both impulsivity and self-control are natural human traits, and feelings of guilt or self-blame can lead to giving up entirely. Thus, the book doesn't just explain what works but also explores why it works. The author, Dr. Kelly McGonigal, is a health psychologist and lecturer at Stanford University, as well as a leading expert in the emerging field of science helping people. She has received Stanford's highest teaching honor. The Willpower Instinct is based on her course at Stanford, The Science of Willpower. Next, I will guide you through the key points of the book. We'll begin by understanding what willpower is, then examine the factors that weaken it, and finally explore ways to strengthen it. Part 1. Let's begin with the first key point. What exactly is willpower? To provide a quick summary up front, willpower is far from being just a subjective attitude. It is closely tied to both the brain and the body. It can be summarized as 3 pillars, 2 forces in conflict, and 1 key indicator. Let's dive into these in order. First, let's talk about the 3 pillars of willpower. One of the most famous cases in psychology is that of Phineas Gage, a railroad worker. On September 13, 1848, a metal rod pierced Gage's left cheek, traveled through his prefrontal cortex, and exited his skull. Miraculously, he survived, but tragically, his personality changed drastically. Previously mild-mannered, disciplined, and likable, Gage became impatient, foul-mouthed, and impulsive, constantly making plans he never followed through on. In essence, his self-control was completely gone. It was as if the brakes in his mind had failed, and he became a reckless and uncontrollable version of himself. What caused Gage to lose his willpower? You might have guessed, it had to do with the damage to his brain. Specifically, the rod injured his prefrontal cortex, a part of the brain located at the very front, near the forehead. Often referred to as the brain's brain, the prefrontal cortex is responsible for managing other brain regions. Other areas of the brain continuously receive signals from the body and the environment, generating impulses like, there's a couch, let's lie down, this food looks delicious, let's eat, or there's breaking news on social media, let's check it. However, No matter how loud these impulses shout, the prefrontal cortex usually steps in, saying, "Pause. Let's think about the future and what really matters." In Gage's case, damage to his prefrontal cortex meant that the part of his brain responsible for self-control was no longer functioning properly. As a result, Gage succumbed to impulsivity, living entirely in the moment. This example highlights that willpower is not merely a virtue or mindset. It is rooted in the physiological functions of the prefrontal cortex. When the prefrontal cortex is impaired, even the strongest will can disappear. From a willpower perspective, the prefrontal cortex can be divided into three main regions. The left region is responsible for helping us take action, even in difficult situations. For example, if running feels hard, this region tells us to take that first step. The author refers to this as the I will power. The right region helps us resist temptations. For instance, when we're tempted by delicious food, this area helps us say no. The author calls this the I won't power. The lower middle region focuses on remembering long-term goals and aspirations. The more active this area is, the better we are at taking purposeful actions and resisting short-term temptations. The author terms this the I want power. These three regions collectively form the self-control system, which competes with another brain system known as the impulse system. While the three pillars describe the prefrontal cortex's role, willpower is also shaped by the clash between the self-control system and the impulse system. The impulse system drives us to seek immediate gratification, losing our temper when angry, indulging in delicious food, or opting for comfort over effort. Most animals rely on this system to act on instincts. Humans, however, have evolved a self-control system alongside this impulse system, thanks to the expansion of our prefrontal cortex over hundreds of thousands of years. To put this into perspective, the prefrontal cortex accounts for 30% of the human brain's cerebral cortex, compared to 20% in chimpanzees and only 10% in monkeys. This evolutionary growth gives humans a dual nature. One self, controlled by the impulse system, lives by the motto, "Enjoy life now." The other self, governed by the self-control system, believes in thinking ahead and planning for the future. When our self-control system dominates, we are motivated to pursue lofty goals and ambitions. But when the impulse system takes over, we succumb to indulgence and short-term pleasures. This constant tug-of-war defines willpower as a balance between these two forces. Finally, willpower is not just about the brain. It is also tied to the body, particularly through a key physiological measure, heart rate variability, HRV. Imagine being thrown into a tiger's den. Your brain's alarm system would immediately activate, triggering a series of responses. Your breathing would quicken, your heart would race, and your body would prepare for fight or flight. At the same time, the alarm system would suppress the prefrontal cortex, as hesitation in such a situation could mean life or death. Now imagine escaping the tiger's den and finding yourself in a room full of delicious food. Would this be a delightful experience or a challenging temptation? If you had sworn to eat healthily, this would be a battle of wills. One part of you would scream, "I want to eat," while another would insist, "I can't eat this." This internal conflict creates tension that activates the brain's alarm system again. This time not due to external danger, but due to the internal threat of short-term desires jeopardizing long-term goals. The self-control system then kicks in, helping you calm down, regulate your heart rate, and resist the temptation. In this process, your brain steps on the metaphorical accelerator, while your body applies the brakes, a balance that enables thoughtful decision-making. Scientists measure willpower using heart rate variability, which reflects the body's ability to adjust its heart rate. Higher HRV indicates stronger willpower, as it suggests greater flexibility in regulating emotional and physical states. When faced with conflicting impulses, high HRV allows individuals to recover quickly, make rational decisions, and stay aligned with their long-term goals. In summary, willpower is defined by three pillars: the I will, I won't, and I want powers located in the prefrontal cortex. Two forces in conflict: the self-control system versus the impulse system. One key indicator: Heart rate variability, a measurable reflection of willpower strength. Willpower, at its core, is both a mental and physiological phenomenon, shaped by the interplay between the brain and the body. Part 2. After understanding what willpower is, let's explore the factors that weaken it. We often say, the body is the capital of revolution. This applies to willpower as well. If the brain and body are fatigued or damaged, willpower will inevitably weaken. In other words, willpower has physiological limits. Using some means there is less left. Neuroscientists have discovered that every time we exert willpower, the brain's self-control system becomes less active. Psychologist Roy Baumeister, the first scientist to systematically observe and measure the limits of willpower, found through countless experiments that whether resisting cookies or suppressing anger, people's willpower weakens over time. This explains many instances of losing control in life. For example, people tend to indulge themselves more at night after a busy day. Those who need high self-control in one area may recklessly overcompensate in another, and those striving for perfect self-control in all aspects are often the most prone to breakdowns. However, explaining loss of control purely from a physiological perspective is insufficient. Even if two people have similar physical conditions and intact prefrontal cortices, their willpower may vary drastically. Therefore, we need to consider other factors behind losing control. Let's construct a scenario of losing control and see how the author analyzes it. Returning to the earlier example of escaping a tiger's den, let's assume the person thrown into the den is named Mike. After escaping from the tiger's den, Mike is placed in a room full of food, including high-calorie, delicious cakes and carrots to fill his stomach. Mike's eyes lock onto the cakes. He thinks to himself, surviving that danger was incredible. I deserve to reward myself. So, he happily eats the first piece of cake. Then, Mike thinks, life is unpredictable and short. I might as well enjoy it while I can. Down goes the second piece of cake. Feeling a bit guilty, Mike thinks he shouldn't have indulged, but since he's already started, he decides to go all in and eat the third piece, telling himself he will abstain tomorrow. As Mike contemplates whether to have another, a group of people enters the room, each eating cake. Watching them, Mike unconsciously eats a fourth piece. At this point, Mike is no longer the Mike he was before. He has now become Mike Gage, a reference to Phineas Gage, who couldn't control himself after damaging his prefrontal cortex. Mike's prefrontal cortex is intact, yet he still lost control. Why? Let's see how the author explains it. The first time Mike lost control, he thought about his courageous escape and felt he deserved a reward. The author identifies a common reason for losing control here: moral licensing. This refers to the tendency to indulge in bad behavior after doing something good. It sounds strange, doesn't it? How could moral righteousness lead to moral lapses? An experiment by two Princeton psychologists sheds light on this. They divided participants into two groups. Group A was shown a statement that said, "Most women are stupid," while Group B was shown a more neutral statement, "Some women are stupid." Group A found their statement blatantly sexist and responded with strong indignation, while Group B's reaction was more neutral. Next, both groups were asked to simulate a job recruitment scenario and decide whether male or female candidates were better suited for a senior position traditionally held by men. Logic suggests Group A, having just expressed anger at sexism, would treat male and female candidates more fairly. However, the results were surprising. Compared to Group B, Group A exhibited significantly more gender bias, favoring male candidates for the position. Shocking, isn't it? The author explains that standing on the moral high ground can lead to self-satisfaction, which acts like a license. You've already proven yourself virtuous. It's okay to relax a little. This is the pitfall of moral licensing. Alarmingly, it's not just actual good deeds that trigger this effect. Imagining doing good or planning to do good in the future can have the same result. Remember Mike vowing not to eat cake tomorrow? His belief that he would do better tomorrow excused his indulgence today. Essentially, any moral label that makes us feel good can lead to losing control. For example, Saving money is virtuous, yet many overspend during Black Friday sales. Protecting the environment is virtuous, but someone who donates a virtual tree in a mobile app may trample over a real lawn without hesitation. If feeling good about oneself can lead to losing control, what about feeling bad? The answer is, it can also lead to losing control. Mike experienced 2 moments of self-loathing. The first came when he thought about life's uncertainties and felt fear and emptiness about the future, prompting him to eat a piece of cake to ease his anxiety. The second came from guilt over his indulgence, leading to further indulgence. Might as well mentality. Let's break these down. First, eating to ease anxiety is a phenomenon psychologists call terror management. This refers to the behavior of seeking comfort or empowerment when reminded of mortality. For example, studies show that news reports about death increase viewers' likelihood of purchasing luxury items like Rolex watches. While a Rolex cannot stop a bullet, owning one can create a sense of power and security. Next, Mike's guilt-driven indulgence stems from the brain's protective mechanisms. The brain not only wants to keep our bodies safe, but also strives to maintain our emotional well-being. When we're feeling down, the brain soothes us like a parent with a child. Don't cry. Here, have some candy. For example, psychologists once asked dieters to imagine gaining 10 pounds, inducing negative emotions. Instead of shutting their mouths, these participants immediately ate more to comfort themselves. While it appears that feeling bad makes people lose control, it's actually the brain trying its best to safeguard our mental and physical well-being. Finally, Mike's final indulgence came when he saw others eating cake. This type of loss of control is linked to the theory of mirror neurons, which are brain cells that reflect the actions and emotions of others, prompting us to imitate their behaviors unconsciously. For example, seeing someone yawn often makes us yawn as well, a classic mirror neuron effect. This explains why Mike couldn't resist eating more cake after seeing others do the same. Research even shows that if a person's friends are overweight, their chances of gaining weight significantly increase for the same reason. In this section, we've explored 4 aspects of losing control: physiological limitations, feeling good about oneself, feeling bad about oneself, and group influence. It may seem like willpower is destined to fail no matter what, but can it actually be improved? The answer is yes. Part 3. Let's now explore how to improve willpower. The first method to enhance willpower is to strengthen the body. The reason is simple. Willpower is linked to the prefrontal cortex and heart rate. Therefore, any activities that restore and strengthen their health can improve willpower. The author introduces 4 such methods: sleep, meditation, exercise, and breathing exercises. Sleep and meditation primarily target the prefrontal cortex. Sleep allows the prefrontal cortex to rest, thereby restoring willpower. Meditation, on the other hand, trains the prefrontal cortex. Just as weightlifting increases blood flow to muscles to strengthen them, meditation increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, which enhances willpower. In fact, studies have shown that just 3 hours of meditation practice can significantly improve willpower. Exercise and breathing exercises, however, enhance willpower by increasing heart rate variability. Exercise is self-explanatory. The author highlights a simple breathing exercise. Reduce your breathing rate to 4 to 6 breaths per minute, taking 10 to 15 seconds per breath. Does this work? A study found that adults with substance abuse issues who practiced 20 minutes of breathing exercises daily improved their heart rate variability and reduced impulsivity. Earlier, we mentioned that the feel-good effect of moral licensing is a major killer of willpower. How can we counter this? The solution is to demoralize actions and activate the self-control self. What does this mean? It means avoiding labeling actions as good or bad. Instead, see them as simply doing your duty. This might sound abstract, but there's a deeper logic behind it. Recall the battle of 2 selves in willpower, the impulsive self versus the self-control self. If we celebrate controlling an impulse, doesn't it imply that we see the impulsive self as our true self? For instance, if I force myself to go for a run and then feel I deserve a reward like a drumstick, It shows that deep down, I believe my true self didn't want to run, and going for a run was exceptional. See the trap? When we see our true self as the impulsive self, we easily fall into the moral licensing pit. However, the truth is that we are both the impulsive self and the self-control self. The one who went out for a run is the self-control self. It's also me. In other words, running is just part of what I do. When we view things this way, we activate the self-control self. We're not doing something virtuous. We're just being ourselves. This helps us avoid the trap of moral licensing. This is the second method to improve willpower: demoralize actions and activate the self-control self. But what if, despite our efforts, the impulsive self wins, leading us to regretful actions, and we spiral into a might-as-well-give-up mentality? The author suggests that the most effective remedy is to forgive yourself. Does this really work? Let's look at a psychological experiment. Researchers invited young women concerned about their weight to participate in a study. Under the guise of research, they were encouraged to eat candy within 4 minutes and drink a large glass of water, inducing guilt. "Oh no, I ate so much. My waistline is doomed." Next, half of the participants received a message. "Some people feel guilty after eating candy, but nobody's perfect. Don't be too hard on yourself." The other half received no such message. Afterwards, the researchers presented them with various candies to taste and rank, allowing them to eat as much as they wanted. The results showed that those who received the self-forgiveness message ate only 28 grams of candy, while those who didn't receive ate nearly 70 grams. The power of self-forgiveness is evident. It's the third method to improve willpower. By demoralizing actions to awaken the self-control self and embracing self-forgiveness to accept the impulsive self, can this complete self resist all temptations? Not necessarily. Sometimes, despite knowing what's right, we still can't resist temptation. What can we do then? Don't worry, there's a fourth weapon to prevent losing control: managing impulses. Let's consider an experiment so harsh it's almost cruel. Alan Marlatt at the University of Washington's Addictive Behaviors Research Center invited 12 chain smokers who hadn't smoked in 12 hours. They entered a lab where a table was laid out with 12 packs of their favorite cigarettes. Marlatt instructed them to follow his commands precisely. Pick up a pack, pause, and look at it for 2 minutes. Take out a cigarette, pause, and look at it for 2 minutes. Put the cigarette in your mouth, pause, 2 minutes. And so on. This went on for an excruciating 90 minutes. Afterward, Marlatt asked them to track their smoking habits and mood over the next week. At the end of the week, 6 participants smoked as much as before, while the other 6 reduced their smoking urges by 37%. What made the difference for these 6 participants? Before the experiment, they had undergone impulse management training. This training boosted their willpower. Here's how the training works. When an impulse arises, don't try to suppress it. Spend at least a minute observing and feeling it. Notice how your body and emotions change. Then, instead of acting on the impulse, act according to your goals. The methods discussed so far: strengthening the body, demoralizing actions, self-forgiveness, and managing impulses, focus on improving willpower from within. But humans are social beings, and our brain's mirror neurons are highly influential. If someone yawns, we're likely to yawn too. So imagine the impact on willpower. Thus, the fifth way to enhance willpower is to surround yourself with the right people. What kind of companions can boost our willpower? They tend to have healthy habits, avoid overindulging us, and don't make us feel ashamed or guilty. When you meet such people, make friends with them. If, for various reasons, you can't form such friendships, adopt them as role models to emulate. As the Chinese saying goes, you become like those you surround yourself with. Or in plain terms, the power of example is limitless. Summary. Here's a concise summary of the key points covered in this book. First, what is willpower? Willpower is not merely a subjective attitude. It is a physiological activity rooted in the prefrontal cortex of the brain and the body. It can be summarized as 3 forces, 2 tigers in conflict, and 1 indicator. 3 forces. The prefrontal cortex's three functional areas correspond to I will, I won't, and I want. These abilities form the human brain's self-control system. Two tigers in conflict. This refers to the constant battle between the self-control system and the impulse system. One physiological indicator, the heart rate variability, HRV, which reflects the strength of self-control. Second, for main factors weaken willpower. 1. The physiological foundation, fatigue or poor health. 2. Feeling good about oneself, the moral licensing effect. 3. Feeling bad about oneself, guilt and self-blame. 4. Social influence, being affected by the behaviors of others. Third, 5 methods to enhance willpower. 1. Strengthening the body. Activities like sleep, meditation, exercise, and breathing exercises can boost willpower by improving the prefrontal cortex and heart rate variability. 2. Demoralizing. This involves activating your self-control self by reframing tasks not as good or bad actions, but as simply part of your role or responsibility. 3. Self-forgiveness. Letting go of guilt can prevent a downward spiral of self-sabotage after setbacks. 4. Managing impulses. Observe your impulses without acting on them, focusing instead on your long-term goals. 5. Building supportive relationships. Surround yourself with individuals who exhibit strong willpower and healthy habits, or use such people as role models. Final thoughts. These are the main lessons from the willpower instinct. It is often said that the greatest differences between people are not in intelligence, but in willpower. After all, we say perseverance leads to victory, not intelligence leads to victory. The author even asserts, stubborn willpower is a person's most outstanding quality. Self-control contributes more to academic success than IQ, more to leadership than charisma, and more to marital happiness than empathy. However, no matter how strong your willpower, it is essential to ensure you are moving in the right direction. And where is that direction? Not in the external world, but within yourself. While maintaining curiosity about the world, don't forget to stay curious about yourself. Understanding, caring for, and reminding yourself of what truly matters are the cornerstones of self-control. If you want to delve deeper into self-awareness, I highly recommend Jonathan's The Self or Antonio Damasio's Self comes to mind.